Yo, what it do, family? It's your boy, the Expert Genius, aka XP, and I just want to get on here and talk about what Tim Smith, Vice President of Premier Boxing Champions PBC, you know, had to say about Earl Spence and Terrence Crawford possibly fighting, and I really don't speak on my boy Terrence Crawford. I usually stay clear and let other people talk. And yeah, I might say something in the comment sections to defend him or whatever, but I usually stay clear of it. But not no more. I'm going to defend my boy. So anybody that, because I like Spence too, but I rock with my boy Bud. So for anybody that's a Spence fan, if this makes you mad, oh well, get over it. It's just boxing. But I'm not liking this about him not being a pay-per-view star, and they haven't built him up. I'm gonna show some parallels to this. Now, remember when Wilder was trying to fight AJ? Anybody remember that? Eddie Hearn, excuse me real quick. How Eddie Hearn tried to say, basically trying to downplay Deontay Wilder. He's, not a pay-per-view star, and hoopla this. What has he done? And, all that. That's basically what the PBC is trying to say about Terrence Crawford. Like, he hasn't been built correctly. But to me, which one of the fighters Earl Spence fought that's been a pay-per-view star? I mean, based off the numbers, Earl Spence himself is not even a pay-per-view star. Yeah, his numbers is better than Terrence Crawford, but 350 or 360K against Mikey Garcia, that's his best numbers. But that against Mikey Garcia is nowhere in the ballpark of being a pay-per-view star. Honestly, the only pay-per-view stars in the sport of boxing is Deontay Wilder. Wilder, when he fought Ortiz, it peaked at 1.2 million. Canelo, he has to have somebody in the ring, another good fighter in the ring with him to do good numbers. Case in point, when he fought Golovkin, he did 1.1. When he fought Cotto, he did 900K. Against Plant, he did 800K. How much did he do against Callum Smith? 350. But he's more of a pay-per-view star than Earl Spence, because he has touched 1 million or above 750K. So neither Spence nor Crawford are pay-per-view stars. And I just showed you a parallel how Matchroom and Eddie Hearn tried to downplay Wilder, and now you heard it from the horse's mouth himself, Vice President of the PBC, Tim Smith, basically say, you know, trying to downplay, uh, trying to downplay, trying to downplay Terrence Crawford. So let's do some more parallels, because they're talking about they don't have no money, but you had money for Canelo, you had money for AJ, but you had money. Well, he was part of PBC, but you had money for Pacquiao, but you don't have money for Crawford, which I'm showing you parallels again, because this happened to the PBC twice. Remember when Charles Martin won the IBF title? Instead of them making Wilder versus Martin, they screwed over Wilder and gave that shot and gave that money to Anthony Joshua and Matchroom. And what did they do? They took that money, they took that belt, and they ran. Fast forward to just last year, even though it was a couple months ago, but you can just say just last year, Canelo versus Plant. They basically sold Plant's belt to Canelo. They treated Canelo better than they did their own fighter, Plant, during that whole process. Canelo took the money, took the belt, and ran. And when they say Crawford hasn't been, built correctly, that there's no money in the fight, that's what Eddie Hearn was trying to say about Wilder and Joshua. Basically, no money in the fight. That just baffles me. There's no money in the fight, but you can pay other people. He's not built correctly. There's no money in the fight, but if you make that fight, that's the fight everybody want to see and everybody paid for. Don't give me that crap. Oh, well, the fans are not gonna pay for it. They're gonna steal it anyway. Did we steal Gervonta Tate Davis fight? Did we steal Spence pay-per-views? And if Spence is a pay-per-view star, why are you worried about it? Because if he's a pay-per-view star, like people are saying he is, surely he can sell that fight himself, right? See, it's not making sense. Y'all are acting just like Matchroom when it came to AJ. PBC is in fear that Spence might lose to Crawford. Hell, I'm pulling for Crawford. I think Crawford can beat Earl Spence. But at the same time, Spence could go out there and beat Crawford. But we'll never know because the PBC seems like they're scared or a little hesitant to make this fight, and it might have something to do with what Canelo just did to them. Took the money and ran. I mean, what's going on here? Don't sit here and say that the price might be high that Crawford wants, but then you're not in the know of what's going on, so you don't know what that number could be. Don't come out here and try to insinuate that Crawford is going to try to price himself out if you don't know, because that to me makes it seem like you're already trying to make excuses and put the blame on Crawford if this fight doesn't happen next. And to me, I've said it before and I'm gonna say it again so you can hear me. There is no guarantee Spence is gonna get past what's his name? The guy he's fighting next. Ugas. I mean, people sleeping on Ugas. And in the comments, and I'm about to go on record now saying upset alert. I believe Ugas is going to upset the apple cart. And we're going to have another fight. Well, not another fight. We're going to have another situation to where these people in the background tried to marinate this fight, and it backfires, and one of the fighters that we wanted to see loses. And then that whole mystique of seeing these two go up against each other to see who's the best deteriorates. It deteriorated with Joshua versus Wilder. This is on the verge of happening too. Crawford versus Spence. And then Fred came out and said that Spence been having IRS, tax problems since the Mikey Garcia fight. Which, if that's true, we might be seeing why the PBC is saying, the money and all that kind of stuff, and why why Spence is talking about, 60-40, and basically you keep talking or whatever, it's 70-30. Now, I'm going to say this about that. I'm going to show another parallel on that. Remember when AJ said if Wilder keeps talking, they'll freeze him out? That is equivalent to Spence saying if you keep talking, it'll be 70-30 my favor. We gave AJ and AJ fans hell when they were acting like that to defend AJ, but this same BS is going on with Spence and the diehard Spence fans that were also calling out AJ and his fans that you're somehow willing to accept it when it's a fighter you like. Crawford is getting the same treatment from you fans that Wilder was getting with the AJ fans. mean, it's unbelievable. Who has he fought? He has the weakest resume. To be honest, I I don't rate not Mikey Garcia. I don't rate Danny Garcia up there as the top welterweights. Cause everything that y'all say about Terrence Crawford, y'all can say that about Danny Garcia. What has Danny Garcia done in the welterweight division? What, beat Robert Garcia for a vacant WBC title? Remember, they made after what was that? Yeah, the after he lost to Floyd and Floyd retired or whatever, they made Manny Pacquiao the lineal champion of the welterweight division. And what happened? Jeff Horn came in and beat Manny Pacquiao. And I want to say this: it was a good fight when he beat Manny Pacquiao. Most of y'all were saying that that'd be a good fight for Earl Spence against Jeff Horn. But soon as Terrence Crawford gets that fight, now everybody wants to discredit Jeff Horn. Even Spence himself. Now, I had a problem with this too. How is everybody, even Spence himself, praising Jeff Horn for beating Manny Pacquiao, but then in the same breath discredit Terrence Crawford for manhandling Jeff Horn? It seems like when Terrence Crawford beats somebody, there's always an excuse. And y'all try to downplay his wins. Same thing with Deontay Wilder. Remember when he fought Luis Ortiz for the first time? The AJ fans and the detractors were saying, finally, Wilder is fighting somebody with a pulse. He's finally fighting somebody. But then, when Wilder beat him, oh, he was an old man. He was a bum anyway. What has he done? Forgetting the fact that Luis Ortiz knocked out Bryant Jennings. The fight after Bryant Jennings had took Vladimir Klitschko 12 rounds. Oh, y'all remember Vladimir Klitschko? His 10-year reign over the heavyweight division? Couldn't even get Bryant Jennings out. In the Bryant Jennings' very next fight after the Vladimir Klitschko fight, he gets knocked out by Luis Ortiz. But back to Danny Garcia, what has he done? Hell, I believe his welcoming party to the welterweight division was Paulo Malignaggi. What was Earl Spence' best win in the welterweight division? Kell Brook, right? Like, come on. Crawford has done more than Danny Garcia in the welterweight division, and Danny Garcia has been in the welterweight division longer than Terrence Crawford, yet he gets praised more than Terrence Crawford. Even at 140 pounds, Crawford became undisputed, but people still praise Danny Garcia at 140 over over Terrence Crawford, even though he ducked Victor Postol. I mean, what are we really doing here? And I don't want to hear Terrence Crawford, because here's another parallel. I don't want to hear Terrence Crawford, he has to be reasonable and he has to take the 60-40 against Earl Spence. Because when AJ had 3 belts, I remember we all went for bat for Deontay Wilder when we were saying it don't matter if he has 3 belts. Wilder's the WBC champion, the most prestigious belt. He's been a champion longer than Anthony Joshua, so he deserves 50-50. Even though it wasn't at welterweight, Terrence Crawford has been a champion longer than Earl Spence. He's been a undisputed champion. But he can't get 50-50. See the parallels there? See the irony in that? Well, Earl Spence is a pay-per-view star. Where? Yeah, his numbers is better than Terrence Crawford's, but his numbers ain't nowhere near being a pay-per-view star. Just like the AJ fans were trying to say about AJ. AJ is a pay-per-view star. Where? He ain't no pay-per-view star over here. Let's just stop. This fight needs to happen. And to me, in my heart of hearts, I think this fight is in jeopardy because I do believe Ugas can upset the apple cart. Let's not forget, Ugas has been wanting this fight ever since he became interim for the IBF title for Earl Spence. What was that? 3 years ago? So Ugas himself been wanting this Earl Spence fight for a long time. Let's not sleep on Ugas. Oh no, yeah, Spence might want this fight, just like when AJ was offered the $50 million that he asked for. He said, "Let's go." He would have took the Wilder fight, but it's the people behind the scenes for these guys that don't want the fight. The PBC don't want the fight for Spence. when it comes to Crawford. Just like Matchroom didn't want the fight for AJ when it came to Wilder. But because of how we feel about these fighters and, you know, putting our hopes and connection into these fighters, that we're unwilling to see the similarities, especially when we didn't call other fighters out for this. But this is your boy, the Expert Genius, aka XP, and I just had to put my 2 cents in on this and finally come out after all these years of, you know, trying to stay silent and try to stay neutral and come to bat for my boy Terrence Crawford. I'm out.